Hey everybody, it's Adam Volk here with the Social School, and we are here in our fourth and final module of our search engine optimization course. So thank you so much for sticking with me for the first three modules, and let's jump into this final module and chat a little bit about what we're going to be talking about. So for this particular module, we are going to talk about link building and also reporting and further resources and learning that you can jump into on your own time. So we're going to talk about the importance of backlinks and how to build really great backlinks that are going to help your SEO program for your site. And we're going to talk about some of the key SEO reporting tools that are available and also some further resources and readings that you can jump into on your own time to kind of expand upon what we've learned about in this particular course. So, link building and reporting. What exactly is link building? So what are backlinks? That's the best thing that we want to first kind of delve into when it comes to looking at off-site SEO, as it's also known as. So we've talked a lot about on-site SEO, all the things we can do, like making our site crawlable and keywords and content, but now we're going to focus about what happens off our site. And so that's where backlinks come into play. So what are backlinks and why are they important? Really, the way we want to think about backlinks is first to remember what we chatted about multiple times throughout this course, that the Google SERP is really nothing but a series of links. And the way to get Google to crawl our site is by following links. And that's why external links, which are also known as backlinks, are a really, really important ranking factor for search engines. In fact, as much as 70% of all SEO value to a particular page or website comes from backlinks. So from links from third-party sites and external sites that are linking to yours, that is providing a huge amount of SEO value. So very important. And the rationale that Google has for this is that if someone is linking to your site and they're potentially driving users away from their own site to get to yours, your content must be phenomenally good. Because why else would you risk driving a user away from your site unless it's quality content? So Google's really thinking of backlinks almost as a popularity contest. The more people that link off to your site, the better it's going to be. However, not all backlinks are created equal. So even though we want to try to get as many links as we can to our site, that's a huge sign of popularity. And our site is, obviously great that a lot of people are thinking our content is so amazing that they want to link off to it. But it's important to bear in mind that it's not always an equal system when it comes to backlinks. So there's really three things you want to look for when it comes to a backlink to your site. And again, 70% of the value of your site from an organic search standpoint is going to come from these backlinks. So we really want to look for these three things. We want that backlink to come from a site with a high domain authority. We want that backlink to have high relevance. And we want it to be free of Nofollow tags. And we're going to chat about what each of these three components is. All right, so domain authority. Essentially, domain authority is a measurement that certain tools give that just looks at how authoritative and trustworthy and valuable the content is on a particular site. So websites like Facebook, YouTube, Wikipedia, and news sources like the New York Times are some of the most authoritative sites on the planet. They're going to have very high domain authorities. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, if you look at things like directory sites or really basic pages that or websites that don't really have a lot of content on them, those are going to be sort of spammy sites. Those are really just not going to have any domain authority at all. So it's going to be kind of low quality content on those particular sites. And domain authority, which is sometimes called DA, is actually a measurement that you can see in tools like Moz and SEMrush. Now, Google doesn't report on domain authority. They say they don't have any metric that looks at this, and it's sort of domain authority, sort of a collection of a lot of different things. But it's a great way to be measured, to measure specific sites using Moz and SEMrush and to actually look at what they're classifying as domain authority, because Google's not going to give us all of its secret sauce, but these tools can help us to understand whether a source is very authoritative or not. So when it comes to backlinks, if we have a backlink from a site that has a much more is much more authoritative and has a higher domain authority, that's going to be a lot more valuable than that one that has a very low domain authority. So for example, if I were to link to your site from Adam's blog, that is not going to be as valuable as a link from something like the New York Times, which is a highly authoritative source and very trusted around the world. So really, one-to-one links are not treated exactly the same. It's always going to give a bit more weight, and Google, even though they're not necessarily telling people what they're measuring, they're definitely going to treat a link from an authoritative site being much more valuable than one that is not. And you'll often see this with your own site. If you were to get a link from a local newspaper or a highly popular blogger, you might actually see rankings dramatically improve even from that single link to a piece of content. So it can be very, very important and very valuable to get authoritative backlinks to your website. The other thing we're going to look for is relevance. So we want a backlink to be relevant to our website. So for example, if you're a flower shop and you get a link from a really popular horticultural blog that has a really high domain authority, that's going to be way more valuable than a link from a car parts blog that has nothing really to do with flowers or your flower shop or your business. So that's really, again, speaking to how Google views content and connections between content. And it's going to understand that, hey, if this is a flower shop and a really popular horticultural blog links off to that, that is kind of giving them that check mark in Google's mind that, hey, this horticultural blog is saying this is a great source, so therefore we're going to connect those two topics together, and that's going to help with rankings. So that's, again, Google does a great job of understanding these semantic relationships, and you could actually drive a little bit more relevance by using anchor linking. So if you ask or have a backlink that's coming to your site, or you know somebody's going to be linking to your site, you can ask them that instead of just saying, hey, go to Kelly's Blooms, it's a flower shop, go to www.kellysblooms. We could ask them to say, hey, could you please anchor link the text to say, the best flower shops in Calgary, and then include the link to our site that way. Because again, Google's going to look for those keywords, being again an idiot savant like we know, and it's going to look and say, hey, it's saying flower shops Calgary in that link. So that's just reinforcing the topic even further to Google. So getting relevant links from other websites that are in the same business or industry as you are, that can be, or are in the same location, the same city, and are really authoritative, that can be very, very helpful. And getting them to anchor link with text is a great way to further drive relevance and help with your rankings. And then the last thing is something we want to look for. We want to make sure that there are no-follow tags on our site. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about what I mean by this. It can be a little bit tricky. So when a backlink is created, if I were to link to your site from mine, it's automatically going to pass along link equity. This is sometimes referred to as link juice by SEOs. So I'm going to pass along the value and essentially tell Google, hey, follow this link to this link without any problems. Just like we've talked about before when it comes to different ways to get Google to crawl our site. So when we backlink from one site to another, we're essentially saying to Google, I recommend this website. So if I backlink to your website, I'm saying, hey, I recommend this website, and that's a signal to Google that this is, an important link and it's a good connection, and it's going to help validate that your website is an authoritative site. But there may be some instances where you don't want to pass along SEO value. For example, if you got paid to link to a website, which Google considers that to be a violation of their platform in terms of services, or if you add a link in a comment or forum, or you're going to a company page that you want to remain private, there's a whole slew of reasons why you just wouldn't necessarily want to tell Google to follow that link. So in that instance, you would use a no-follow tag. And just like we talked about with canonicals and other types of tags, this is just a small little bit of code, and it looks like this. You just add that to the top or to a link. So when you create the link, it would add this no-follow tag, and then it's going to pass along. So probably you would never do this, but we're more concerned about making sure that someone who's linking to our site is not doing this. And just by default, some websites, including Wikipedia or pretty much every major news site, at least in the US, they add no-follow tags to all links by default. So they're saying, even if you got a link from, say, CNN to your website, by default, chances are CNN is going to add a nofollow tag. So they're saying to Google, we don't want to pass along any SEO value from our site to this site, and we don't want you to crawl that. So why would they do that? Because they're cool with driving users to your website to look at your content, but they don't want to give an official endorsement because that could reflect poorly on them to Google as well. Because if they're linking off to a ton of sites and those sites are penalized by Google, that might blow back on the original site that's linking off to them. So if CNN were to link to a really sketchy site a whole bunch of times and that site ends up getting blacklisted by Google or weird things happen to that site, that might reflect on CNN as well. So just to be on the safe side, they just say they don't want to have any pass along any value, so they add nofollow tags. So that's not really doing any great service to our site when it comes to SEO. So for our backlinks, we want to make sure that if somebody is linking to our site, that link does not have a nofollow tag on it. So that it's going to pass along all that link equity and link juice directly to our site. And you can literally just check that using the SEO meta in one click and see, and also looking at the link itself just to see if they did have a nofollow tag on that. So you want to make sure that if someone's linking to your site, it has a high domain authority website, it is a relevant link, and it does not have one of these tags on them. All right, so with all of that in mind, next thing is link building itself. And this is one of the least technical things to do with SEO. It's almost more like traditional PR and outreach, and we'll chat a little bit about what that looks like in the next little section here. So link building is really pretty simple. It's just getting relevant high authority websites to link to yours. And it's really often just a case of asking if someone can link off to you and literally emailing or calling them or even asking them in person if you can get a link from them. That's all there is to it. And it's an entire discipline of SEO. In fact, there are agencies who are just dedicated and consultants who are just dedicated to link building. That's all they do for a living, is trying to get links. Because again, we know that 70% of a potential SEO value is coming from doing link building. So there's a number of different tools that can help you identify link building opportunities. So a couple of these are going to be familiar from what we've already chatted about. Moz has its own proprietary link building tool that will let you identify opportunities. SEMrush has an amazing series of link building tools. And there's also another tool which is probably one of the best in class and is known primarily for its link building, and that's called Hrefs or Ahrefs, depending on who you chat with in terms of pronouncing the name. But these are three really great tools that you can use to help identify link building opportunities. And really, they're very user friendly, but it's all about just finding those opportunities and then connecting with the users. Just as an example of SEMrush's link building tool, you can actually see here that there is a backlink analytics tab here. I can enter this for any website, so I've entered the social school here, and it's going to show me the total number of backlinks, referring domains, the authority score of my website. It's going to show me all sorts of information that I can use to try to go out there and find other link building opportunities. And you'll notice here too that it has a whole series under the link building section in SEMrush. I can do a backlink audit to see exactly who's linking to my site and how well I'm doing. I can do link building tool to look for opportunities, and I can even do a bulk analysis, which gets a little more technically complicated, but I can just see exactly what's happening with my overall link profile. So some great tools and relatively user-friendly in terms of actually finding opportunities. And a good way to do this is also by dropping in competitor domains and taking a look at those as well. So great places to start. As I mentioned here, competitors, you could drop their sites through these backlink tools and say, hey, why are they getting so many links? Where are they getting these great links from? Maybe that's a place you can also reach out to and get your website to be linked from there as well. Any industry sites that you know. So are there any major players? Are there news sites? Are there industry directories? What's in your industry that you could potentially get somebody to link off to your site that is a trusted source of news or information for your particular business or your industry? And are there any major players you could chat to? Are there business partners? Are there third-party websites that you deal with on a regular basis that you could potentially ask to link off to yours? And then influencers. Are there any bloggers? any authoritative news sources, people that have a lot of clout that you could potentially get to link to your site. And at any point, you can take that person's site and drop it into these link analysis tools and just see how authoritative that site actually is, and just get a sense of whether or not that site would be worth driving links to your particular website. Some tactics too. There are a ton of different ways you can get people to link to your website. And again, there's an entire subdiscipline of SEO that is just dedicated to link building. But here are a few of the really good ones. And as you'll see as we go through these, a lot of these are more like traditional PR outreach rather than any sort of technical wizardry or using any code or anything like that, like we've covered in the previous modules. So the first one that I really like to do, and I've done this, as it's much more difficult to do, but if you can do this well, you can get great results. That's link bait. And that's simply the hardest thing to do, but the most effective. That's just creating great content that's likely to get shared. So if you have unique data, a really impressive, sharp, great-looking infographic, you've done in-depth research, you're one of the only people talking about a particularly great piece of content or a really hot-button topic, you're naturally going to get links from that. And I've seen that even for small brands who somehow manage to produce great content, that ends up naturally requiring a lot of links. And this is known as link bait, essentially. You're producing a piece of content that's going to get passed around and shared, and as a result of that, it's going to drive a lot of links back to your site. Another one, and this is one of my favorite ways to get links, is to write a flattering article about a major influencer and then let them know about it. So chances are that person's going to link to it. Even if they're a huge name, if you write up an article and say, oh, this person is amazing, they're so awesome, blah, 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 and then tell that person about it, chances are that's really going to stroke their ego and they're going to end up linking off to your site. Another great technique, and you can use those tools that we just chatted about to find this, is you can identify broken backlinks. So you can see if there used to be a link in place that a website was driving to. Maybe they drove off to an authoritative blog, and now that blog doesn't exist anymore. You can still find that and again contact those people using these tools and say, hey, I noticed that you used to link off to this blog. Just so you know, that blog doesn't exist anymore. I've written another piece of content that's exactly like that. So chances are that website's going to love you because first you've identified that they're driving to a 404 page that no longer exists, so they're going to love that the fact that you're cleaning that up for them. And they're also going to love that you've got a solution. You've got a new piece of content that you could drive off to instead. So great technique to do that. Other option is newsjacking. So this is if there's a major story breaking or a story related to something that's happening in your industry, rather than just linking off to another news source for that, why not write your own version of that story? And that's going to increase the likelihood of that getting picked up and shared. So another great technique to do. Guest blogging is another really awesome technique that I've used before. So you can write a blog post on a relevant, high authority site. And often we're always looking for content, especially news sources or industry sources. They need content. They're constantly having to crank out new articles and new pieces of content. So if you can do that for them and then just say, hey, I'll write you an article if you link back to my website, tons of industry professionals do this as a way to kind of build their cred, and it can be a really great backlink tactic as well. Another one that I really enjoy using and have had a lot of success with is doing interviews. Very similar to ego baiting, but if you conduct an interview with a major influencer and kind of do a Q&A and then write it up as a transcript, maybe you do a podcast or a video or an audio or video file at the same time and transcribe that and put it all on a single page, chances are that influencer is again going to link to your site so that the user from their own site can read that entire interview and see how amazing they are. So another great way to get somebody to link off to your site. Local directories are another option. This is sort of more of an old school technique, an old school tactic, but essentially there's a ton of local directories. And I mean hundreds, if not thousands of local directories beyond Yelp and other things like that, or business directories. The Calgary Chamber of Commerce, for example, or local chambers of commerce. Maybe there's a directory of websites for your particular industry. There's going to be tons of these different directories, and it's not going to drive a ton of SEO value, but if you can do enough of them and it makes sense to do so, you're going to get really great results. Just as a caveat about this used to be a technique that was very sketchy that a lot of people used back in the day, where they would just submit thousands of links to thousands of directories all over the world, and none of them were really very useful. Google kind of cracked down on that, and it's not really a great technique to use anymore. But actually submitting to valid local directories can still be a good way to do some backlink building. Other thing too you could do is blog and forum comments. So maybe you respond to a hot button topic or a blog, and then you include a link to your website at the bottom in the comments section. And it's not going to drive a ton of SEO value, but it can still be a useful way to get a link to your site from that blog. You can also answer questions. So there are sites like Quora and Yahoo Question, where you could actually write an answer. You could be the source of information for a particular question that users have related to your business or your industry, and you can include a link to your website from that. So that you'll often see those results show up. If you do a question, sometimes Google will try to answer it directly, but you'll also see these question-based sites show up as well, and they're driving decent links to yours. Another one I've seen this work a lot for a lot of websites I've worked for, or a few websites I've worked for, but you can actually do a sponsorship. So you give some cash to a local charity. Creating a scholarship is another really powerful one that can actually work well, and then you get those people to link to your site. Now, this is sort of getting into the area of paying for links, but your rationale would be, if you ever got called out on this, that you're not actually paying for a link, you're just sponsoring, and they're happening to give you a link to your site as a result of that. And also, if you are a sponsor of something naturally and you're not even thinking about backlinks from it, this might be a good opportunity for you to ask those particular people to link off to your site, and maybe instead of just linking off to a logo at the bottom of their site that includes your company logo and then drives to your site, maybe asking them to do a little bit of a write-up about it and then anchor link from a particular page to your site. So yeah, if you are doing any sponsorships, think about getting some extra little value from doing that sponsorship. Obviously, it looks great for your brand, but it'll also give you a little bit of link juice as well if you can get them to link off to your website from that. All right, so let's do our first exercise of this module. And what I'd like you to do is just to identify 5 to 10 websites, influencers, or bloggers. And this could even be social bloggers, because social does provide a bit of SEO value. It's increasingly important from an SEO standpoint. But just think about who you could potentially get backlinks from. And then just think about what you would say to these individuals. How would you go about asking for it? And again, this is a very old school PR outreach, but I've actually seen a lot of people do this, where it's literally they identify a great backlink opportunity, and then they simply find out who they need to contact, or simply email whatever's primary emails on their website and just ask to get a link. And it's always a quid pro quo, you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back kind of situation, but it can be really, really beneficial. So just think about what you would ask those influencers and bloggers or websites so that they can drive a link to your site. So let's just take a few minutes to do that, and then we will continue on with the last little section of the module here. All right, so this is the last section of the entire course, and I just wanted to talk a little bit about reporting and some further resources just to help you on as you progress, and if you're interested in expanding your knowledge base. Obviously, this is not meant to teach you every little element about SEO. This is just a foundation and an intro to the topic. So there's tons more reading and a lot of great resources out there, which we're going to chat about in this section. All right. So how do you know if your SEO efforts are working? You might remember in our first module we chatted about one of the big challenges being that it's very hard to measure the exact results from doing this type of work. So we can't say for sure, if I do this type of optimization, I optimize these 3 pages for these keywords, you're going to get X number of conversions. It's very hard to do that. So we have to be cognizant of how we're actually showing that our SEO efforts are working. So the best way to do that is to report on it. I would actually say that an SEO report is really the most important thing to show value to your boss, or if you're going to do this on your own as a contractor, to show to your client. However you need to report to show that this thing is working, a report is kind of the one way to do that, because other than that, we don't really have anything to show. You know, if you're a web designer, you have the final website. If you're a designer or a developer, you have like products to show. Even if you're sort of like a traditional print designer, you're gonna have something like that the actual client or end user or your boss can see. So SEO is a bit trickier because we can't really show what's happening other than by providing a report. So reporting is hugely important for SEO. And there's really 3 great, totally free reporting tools that you can use, and I've included links here to each of these, and that's Google Analytics, Google Search Console, and Google Data Studio. Now, just as a note here, getting these set up can be a little tricky. You just need to add a tag to your website to get these accounts verified, with the exception of Google Data Studio, which is just kind of connects into to the other two. But it does take a little bit of work just to get these up and running, but these are totally free and extremely powerful and amazing tools that you can take advantage of. So Google Analytics is also known as GA. This is an amazing tool, totally free to use from Google. And I should preface that by saying free up to about 1 million visits or 1 million data points. If you do need more than that, you would end up having to get the paid version, which is called GA360. That's the enterprise level version of the software. But if you, and most websites in the world are not going to be getting 1 million visitors a month, or at least if you're a small brand. So a small local business or a reasonably sized website, chances are you're not going to hit that amount. So you can still use the free version. But GA gives you a ton of amazing information. 4 of the kind of big buckets that it really gives you is audience information. So it's going to show you demographics like age and gender. It'll even show you interests. It's going to show you where in the world that particular users are coming from. It's going to show you the devices and even operating systems that they use to get to your website, the languages they speak or are using to access your website. Tons of different audience information that can be incredibly valuable, not just for SEO, but for your business as a whole if you just want to see what kind of users are actually ending up on your site. Acquisition is also going to be extremely important, especially for SEO. This is going to show you all the channels that drove traffic to your site. So did it come from social media? Was it from organic search? Was it a bunch of email campaigns that you set up? Was it direct? Was it display ads? How did the user get to your site? So you're going to be able to see how all of your channels are doing. And for SEO, you can benchmark how well organic search is doing to other channels and just see, I'm doing all this SEO work, am I seeing an increase in organic search traffic within the acquisition section of Google Analytics? Behavior is another really cool thing you can see in GA. This is going to show you pages and actions that users took on your site. So particular pages they visited, how they got to that page, and what they did when they were on that particular page. And throughout all of these tools, throughout all these different sections as well, you can pull a ton of different associated data. So you can look at things like bounce rate, so that's the percentage of users who leave a single page, visit a single page, and then leave immediately. They bounce from that page. So you're able to see that. You're able to see the average amount of time that users spent on site, how many pages they looked at on average, tons of other really useful information. You can even see information in GA in real time. So you can see at this exact second how many users are on my website and what are they doing right now, which is pretty amazing. And then the kind of last big bucket that you'll probably want to focus on from a reporting standpoint is conversion. So you really want to build out some key actions and goals that you want users to take on your site. So did they buy something? Did they sign up for an email list? Did they click a contact button? You want to be able to track all those things. And you can track those in GA, not only for reporting for your SEO efforts, but just reporting in general and seeing what channel is driving the most conversions to your site. So if you do not have GA set up on your existing website, I would strongly recommend you do this. It is an incredible tool, incredibly useful for more than just SEO, and 100% free to set up and be able to get up and running. So definitely recommend checking out GA. And there's a ton of learning you can do around this tool. Google has a bunch of free courses, which we'll chat about a little bit later, but an amazing tool. The other option here too, and this is particularly valuable for SEO, is Google Search Console. So this is also another free tool. It used to be called Google Webmaster Tools, and it's sometimes known now as GSC. So this is particularly focused on organic search for your site. It doesn't provide you with a lot of other information beyond the keywords and pages that are driving traffic. So it's really focused on what's happening in your SERP or on your SERP and what are people searching for to get to your website. So it's going to show you impressions, clicks, the click-through rate, and the average position of your of a page or a particular keyword that you're ranking for. Now, this tool is incredibly powerful also because it offers a number of different technical tools. So this is where you would go to submit your sitemap when you have a Google sitemap or an XML sitemap. You can also see what pages are being indexed. So we could use Screaming Frog to do that, but we can also go into this tool and see that as well. It'll show you if there's potential security issues, and it's just got a lot of really impressive tools that will help you kind of keep your site clean and free from errors and also understand how Google's crawling it. Now, just as a caveat about this, Google is happy to give this information because it's going to make the user experience better, but they're not going to go out of their way to give SEOs a ton of free information because really Google makes most of its money off paid ads. So take what you see from here with a grain of salt, and you'll quickly realize using this tool that it does have some limitations. Google's not going to give you all of the secret sauce and show you everything that's going on behind the scenes, but it can be a really, really amazing tool and definitely a must-have if you're doing any kind of SEO work on your website. And the last tool I just wanted to mention here for reporting is a free tool called Google Data Studio. This actually used to be a paid product, and Google a few years ago made it 100% free. It lets you build out custom reports using any Google source. So you can pull information from Google Analytics, from Search Console if you're running paid search from Google Ads. You can even make a spreadsheet in Google Sheets and pull that data in however you want. And there's also a ton of connectors, and Google has invested a lot of money into this. So you can pull data from third-party sources. So there's actually connectors even included for SEO tools like Moz and SEMrush, and a whole bunch of other connectors as well. Connectors for Facebook and Twitter and all sorts of other platforms that are out there. And you can make really nice visual reports that are very easy to digest complicated information. So the tool is free to use. It does take a bit of time to learn and master, but it can be a really, really powerful way to share information. And a lot of clients that I've worked with create dashboards in Google Data Studio. And so that's essentially a single page that they can update the date range in any time and see exactly what's happening on that site. So you can share those dashboards with your clients or with your boss and just kind of show what's happening in real time, and it gives them a sense of ownership and more of a confidence in the work that you're doing as part of your SEO program. So definitely recommend checking out this tool as well. Now, when it comes to what you're actually going to include in your reporting, there's a lot of different things you can add. But most SEO programs tend to track these 5 primary things, and then they will report on a whole range of other things, but these are kind of the big ones. So obviously the first thing is going to be organic search traffic. And you can pull this from Google Analytics and also from Google Search Console in terms of looking at clicks to your site. So that's going to be really important just to say, hey, I've done all this optimization work. Am I seeing organic search traffic begin to increase as a result of this SEO work that I've done? And then obviously our big one is going to be conversions. This is probably more important even than traffic, but we want to drive more traffic to the site and then also get more corresponding conversions as well. So are we seeing, hey, we're making more relevant content, we're optimizing that content to appear more highly placed in search results, and are we seeing more people convert as a result of that? So you should be able to see conversions really in Google Analytics. You're not probably going to be able to pull a lot of conversion data from Search Console, but you'll be able to see some information in terms of clicks and understanding what pages are being driven to. But really, GA is going to be your best bet when it comes to understanding organic search conversions. And then also keyword rankings. So we chatted earlier in the course that that's something that a lot of people really focus on, is getting on that first page of Google. But really, this shouldn't be our primary thing we're reporting on. It's still important to report on this and understand that what's happening, but really, as a result of rankings, we should be seeing an increase in traffic and conversion. So that rankings usually are just a reflection of or they trickle down to driving more traffic and conversions, but they're not the be-all and end-all of what we want to achieve. And you can pull rankings from a ton of different tools, but SEMrush, Moz, and Google Search Console are all going to give you keyword rankings so that you can understand, hey, I made this optimization to this page for this keyword. Previously, we were on position 20, so we're at the bottom of the second page of Google. Now we're position 6, so we're on the first page of Google. We've moved up 14 spots. It just kind of allows you to understand what's actually happening, and hopefully you'll see corresponding increase in traffic and conversions as a result of that too. The last thing a lot of SEOs like to report on is site errors. So a lot of these tools will have health scores that you can pull in. SEMrush and Moz all have health tracking, so you can see it kind of gives you a benchmark health score between 1 and 100, that just how many errors you have on your site, and is just sort of a general health check of the overall hygiene and effectiveness of your SEO on your site. But you can also pull search errors from Google Search Console and Screaming Frog and just kind of benchmark those. But you want to go to your boss or your client or whoever you're working with and say, hey, we started off with this many errors that we know are impacting your site and negatively and could potentially be keeping you off the SERP, and we made these many changes, and so we know that should have a corresponding impact in terms of driving more rankings and driving more traffic and conversions. And then a lot of SEOs will also report on external links too. So if you're doing a lot of back building or you've produced a lot of new content, you should see an increase in external links to your site as well. Or if you're doing a lot of outreach and directory submission, you should be seeing that as well. So a lot of people will pull that from SEMrush and Moz. You can also pull this data from Google Analytics as well and get a good sense of what's actually happening, because as we've already discussed, we know that backlinks to your site are going to be really, really important factor. And there's a whole other range of other things you could report on as well when it comes to SEO, but these are kind of the 5 most important that you're probably going to want to include in any kind of report that you put together. Again, remembering that reporting is one of the best ways to show the value of what you're actually doing when it comes to SEO. All right. So let's just take a quick moment here and do another exercise. And I'd like you to look at your site and just see if you have any of the following. Do you have Google Analytics set up? Do you have Google Search Console set up? And do you have a Google Data Studio account? And then if you don't, just identify who you would need to speak with to get access to this or to get it added. And if you do have access, particularly when it comes to Google Analytics, what are you seeing for organic search data? Is it driving a ton of traffic to your site? Has it dropped off over the last year? You might need a developer to help you look in GA, or might have to do a little bit of poking around on your own time just to see what's happening. But just look and see if you're able to see any organic search trends and trying to figure out exactly what might be causing that. So let's just take a moment and do this exercise here, and then we will come back and finish off the rest of the module. All right, so just to wrap up the course and everything we've talked about, I know this is a lot of information and it's a lot to digest. And this is just meant to be a foundational program. There's a ton of reading that's required, but hopefully you're going to be able to take a lot of what we've chatted in this course and have a decent base that you can use to do some work for your website or to expand your knowledge. There's a huge demand for SEOs right now, and it's an ever-changing field, and there's a ton of stuff to learn. And a really good SEO is somebody who's always learning and always kind of anticipating what's happening in the industry and keeping up on that. So that's why I just wanted to give you some further reading and some resources that might help you as you continue to grow with this field and kind of expand your knowledge base. So we're really just scratching the surface of what SEO is and what it can do. This is a huge field, very in demand. I know even just as myself working in this industry for a while, we cannot find enough people on the teams that I've worked with to keep up with the demand for this, and there's just not a lot of people knowing this. So even a little bit of knowledge goes a really, really long way, and there's huge potential for what you can actually do when it comes to SEO. So some further readings. What I really love, this is one that a lot of people first stumble upon when they are learning about SEO, is the Moz Beginner's Guide to SEO. And you'll find links to all of this in your workbook as well, or you can Google any of these. But the Moz Beginner's Guide to SEO, it was updated in 2019, fairly recently, and it is a great guide that will kind of walk you through the basics of SEO and talk about a lot of what we've covered in this course, and also offer some great insights. Moz, in addition to being a tool, is also an amazing source of information, so strongly recommend you to check out the Beginner's Guide, and also just poke around on the Moz website as well. There's a ton of amazing content on there too. Google also has their SEO Starter Guide. This is a little drier, a little bit more, not technical, but a little bit more theoretical, but it can be useful, and it kind of gives you some insight into how Google's thinking about search rankings. And would also recommend that you check out What is SEO? This is a particular section written by Neil Patel, who we chatted about a little earlier. He's a really amazing digital marketer and SEO expert, and he has a really great guide here that kind of breaks out a lot of what we've covered and might help you crystallize some of the topics that we've chatted about in this course. Also, there are some really amazing blogs and news sources out there. These are just a few. There's tons of them out there. Would just encourage you to kind of poke around and see what really catches your interest. But some of the big ones are Search Engine Land, Search Engine Journal, and Search Engine Watch. Each of these also tends to have its own conferences, but these are really the kind of the three primary publications when it comes to SEO. Think with Google is also a ongoing Google newsletter that you can subscribe to, and also a series of blogs and articles and case studies that's just full of amazing information and a lot of great SEO resources within Think with Google too. And also would invite you to just check out the blogs for some of the tools that we've chatted about. Three that I love are the Moz blog. Pay particularly attention to their Whiteboard Fridays, which are amazing videos that cover a particular topic. They're really entertaining and informative and kind of easy to understand, and you don't necessarily have to be an SEO master to kind of understand a lot of the concepts they talk about. Same with the SEMrush blog, really user-friendly, beginner-friendly topics, and just a ton of great resources there. Also, check out the Hrefs blog. Tons of amazing content on that site as well, which can really help crystallize a lot of the things that we've been chatting about. Also, some resources. There's a lot of really great Google tools out there. If you go to Think with Google's tools section, you can find a ton of stuff on there that can be really helpful. These are actual tools that you can use to check SEO for your site and check out a number of different technical issues and elements. Would also recommend you try the Google mobile test. So this is the mobile-friendly test where you can drop in your website and just see if it's mobile-friendly. As we chatted about, Google is now using a mobile-first indexing, and most of the users to your site are probably going to be on mobile devices, so you want to make sure your site is mobile-friendly, and this tool will actually tell you things that you can fix to make your site mobile-friendly. Also, there is a Page Speeds Insight tool. Speed is a really important new factor for SEO rankings. And as we chatted about, there's an entire technical discipline of people who are really focused on speed right now when it comes to SEO. It can be very technical. But this is going to give you some high-level insights into how your page or your website is loading when it comes to mobile and desktop, and gives you some recommendations for what you can do to help make your site even faster. Also would strongly recommend that you check out Google My Business if you have not already. If you have a local business and you have not taken ownership of your Google My Business page, do so immediately after this course, or even stop this course right now and go ahead and do that. It is a hugely important tool and way to rank for local SEO, and if you do almost the same kind of approach that we've chatted about with websites in terms of optimizing your Google My Business listing for particular keywords, and just having more control and making sure that you're accurate with this information in terms of your hours of operation and phone number and branding and imagery. That can go a long way to connecting with users, because we know that a lot of those results when someone's searching something, a lot of the results that we're going to show in that Google 3-pack, those Google Map listings, that's coming from Google My Business. So you want to make sure that you've taken ownership of that. And would highly recommend that you check out the Google Analytics Academy. This is if you want to know more about analytics. The tool looks a little crazy sometimes, I know. When I first saw GA, I was like, this looks like it's going to cause my brain to melt and leak out of my nose. It does look very complicated. It's actually not as bad as it looks. And if someone like me can learn it, who does not have a technical background, you can definitely learn it too. So would strongly recommend that you check this out. And even a little bit of familiarity with Google Analytics, having that base knowledge to be able to go in and see what's happening to your website is hugely beneficial and hugely valuable, and being able to offer data insights that can be applied not only to your website but your business as a whole, that is incredibly valuable, and definitely something that can help with your career and your business. All right, so just a few final, food for thought when it comes to SEO. Like anything else in life, it's all well and good for you to listen to this course and go through all these exercises and sort of listen to me yammer on here for a good 4 to 5 hours. But the best way to learn is by doing, and that definitely applies to SEO. So I would highly encourage you to get out there, and if you have your own website, your own personal website that you can experiment with, that could be a great way to learn SEO and to see what works and what doesn't work. Would recommend checking out the latest news sources, chatting with a pro. There's tons of different forums and groups out there on LinkedIn and all sorts of other different sources out there where you can chat with professionals who love talking about this stuff and love kind of sharing knowledge. It's a very friendly community. There's also lots of podcasts out there. MozPod's a great one. There's one called Experts on the Wire, which is an SEO podcast as well. Another great place to kind of hear from pros. There's a lot of tools out there. We chatted about some of them in this course, but that is just really scratching the surface in terms of all the tools that are actually available. So find one that you like, test them out, give them a run. A lot of them have free trials that you can give a go, so feel free to check those out. Some other tools that we didn't chat about in this course, but you might want to look at in your own time include Bright Edge and Deep Crawl. Those are a couple of other pretty popular SEO tools, so check those out too. Also look at the data. Always use that as your guidepost and to try to figure out what's happening when it comes to SEO. So don't be afraid to kind of poke around, get a good sense of GA if you can, and really let the numbers dictate what's actually occurring instead of just anecdotal or gut reactions. And then the one big thing I really hope you'll take away from this course is that with SEO, even little changes can drive huge results. And that sounds like an oversimplification, but I swear it is absolutely true. I've seen this happen with multiple clients where even changing a page title and adding a keyword in there, all of a sudden they double their conversions and double the traffic to a page. Because again, Google is an idiot savant, and if you can give Google what it wants, when it wants it, and make it as easy as possible to crawl your site, you can see dramatic results. So even putting aside a lot of the technical things that we've chatted about, if you do nothing else, at least do some basic keyword research and update the page title and meta description on one of your top pages, I guarantee you that's going to drive a lot better results than whatever you're experiencing right now. So even doing little things, there's a ton of stuff you can do. It can be very overwhelming to decide what to do first, but even just picking a few little things and kind of working your way through those can really, really drive dramatic results. And remember that SEO is an art form and a science. So there's not, sometimes it is finding that keyword that you feel is going to work and letting the numbers and data kind of speak to you. But at the end of the day, it's still also a bit of an art form to figuring out what works. But if you're willing to invest the time, if you're willing to learn, this is a hugely valuable skill. It is hugely in demand. It's one of the top ranked skills on LinkedIn right now. And I truly believe that anybody can learn to use this technology and this technique if they're willing to invest the time. And so I guarantee you can do this and you can learn to take your website to the next level doing basic SEO. So that's it for me. I just wanted to thank you so much for joining me on this course. I know there's a lot of information to digest, and I've also included my email address here if you want to reach out to me or connect with me on LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you. And good luck and happy search engine optimizing. And thank you so much for enjoying or joining me in this particular course. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you got something you can learn from this. And just as a quick note here too, if you are taking the digital marketing certificate, would recommend that you check out next the Google Ads course to chat a little bit more about paid search, which is kind of the opposite side of the coin when it comes to search. So thanks so much for joining me, and we will see you soon.